Greetings and salutations. This is Red Tide's Art of War. This is a single lane only RTS wave construct game. It has 4 game modes, all signified by these weird and wacky looking planets. You've got your quick matches, which is just your standard PvP. You can have versus 1 or 3v3. You've got arena. You have your versus AI as standard, and you also have ranked, which I can kind of see becoming a little bit stressful. Now, like I said, this is a wave-based single lane RTS. And basically, for those that don't know what that is basically you've got 2 bases. You have to decide what you want to put out on that wave, and at the same time, both bases, you and your enemy, will release those units you have said to put out. It's quite simple. It's more of a, I would call it like a gateway into your RTSs. Now sadly I'm a little bit biased towards this because my first RTS was Red Alert Command and Conquer. I then moved on to your Dawn of War 40k after a brief intervention period, which I'll go on to in a second. Now, Dawn of War 40k, I prefer the first one. The second 2 and 3 are single base units only. I prefer the idea of actually building a construct, a city as it were, and levelling up through that. So this thing does sort of fall short for me on that level. I prefer the actual, let's actually build a base and level up as you go and unlock upgrades, etc, etc. This has none of that. It is literally just how much resource do you have. You're constantly gaining resource. You say what units you want to put out. You can only have 6 different units, although you can have a multitude of different within your inventory. You can only put out 6 different types of units at a time at a population cap of 60, and obviously each unit will consume different amounts of population, as it were. Now, my brief intermittent period of RTSs was actually one on the PlayStation called Alien vs Predator Extinction. That was a entirely separate wave genre of art. It was still an RTS, but it was completely different, and I only fell in love with it really because it was aliens. I love aliens, by the way. So that was a different take on an RTS, but yet again, this is a bit different from what I am generally used to. But generally speaking, overall, it is a really solid game. It is free to play, as always, because you know I love my free to play games, and it is a very, very good way of possibly getting into your RTSs. So if you're wanting to look into getting some RTSs, and there's a massive plethora of really good ones out there, but they can be a bit more on the I need money side. So if you want to get like a free one, just to test out whether you like it, because it is a lot of money management and man management sort of style of games, this is a good one to sort of start out at. It's pretty simple. It's quite it gives you a rough idea of how an RTS works. You have select units. You have to build up your team, because you can, I think overall in your inventory you can only take something like 14 overall units, but each race, as it were, because there's 3 separate races, each race has a lot more overall units than that. Now, your standard resource is the green gems you can see in the top left corner. That is constantly going up at an exponential rate. These are pretty much depleted by the overall cost of how many units I have going out per wave, which is dictated by that blue bar counting down at the bottom, which I'm hoping you can see. It's just refreshed. It goes down again. So that's the time between each wave. Each time that hits, goes to the bottom or completely depletes, a new wave is sent out. On top of that, you've got another currency, which is your gold coins. These are achieved by killing things, and depending on what it is you've destroyed depends on the amount that you get, and the more coins you get, you can then use your special abilities. I have a few planes that fly in and drop bombs for 300 gold, or I can drop a nuke for 1000 gold. Depends on how I'm feeling. The nuke is obviously preferred. Also, within each or selected units, there are micromanaging parts to them. You might notice I have a little guy up at the moment with a little crosshair, or I did have. I've now got one up with a catapult. These are selected things that you can do. You don't have to aim them, just click on it and it will do its designed or desired effect. It is a little bit of micromanaging. It's not too strenuous, but again, this gives you an insight into some more high profile RTSs, because like I keep saying, this is sort of like a gateway RTS. So if you are a fan of RTSs and you've got a few of them already and you're big into them, this is not going to be a game for you. This is for the new guy, as it were, really. It is quite a fun game, and it can get a little bit addictive because it is very, very easy. Literally just line them up and throw them out. Now, as always with these sorts of games, there are easy ways to win because it is basically a war of attrition. The more things you throw at it, it solves all your problems. So for me, my general play style from the start is literally just throw out as many men as I can. The cheaper the better, because that means I can just throw more out, and once I start gaining a little bit of leeway, a little bit of ground, I can then start getting my more expensive units in just to hold that ground while I build up some of my resource just to keep pushing them back and eventually win. Ta-da! Now, like I said, there are 3 races, and I'm a little bit disappointed with this because I find it very, very StarCraft. You've got your Terran, which is your humans. You then got the Ultak, which is your advanced alien race, and then you've got the Yao Guai, which is basically your brutal, weird alien. I don't know how to explain it. So it's basically like, well, your Terran, your Protoss, and your Zerg from StarCraft. Within each race, like I said, there are multiple different units going through the Terran races here. And on top of that, they also have skins, which is quite interesting. But as always with a free-to-play game, these skins are purchased only. You can unlock a few, but nothing really too exciting. Most of it is paid, but that is all you really actually pay for. So it's not too much of a pay packet feature. I mean, it's a free-to-play game, so you don't have to spend a penny if you don't want to, but there are in-game purchases. So if you do plan on getting this for your child, or if you are a younger person, just be warned, don't go clicking on everything, because you'll probably spend mummy and daddy's hard-earned money a little bit too quick. Just make sure they don't know about it if you do, otherwise, you know, spankings. But overall, one of the most interesting mechanics of this game that I actually found is actually the 3 versus 3, because the way this works, it's entirely the same way. It's still single lane. It's not sort of 3 lanes converge into one and you get 3 waves all hitting each other at the same time. It's one player takes the first turn, the 2 player takes the second turn, and the 3rd player, in this case me, takes the 3rd turn. And so you're near enough combining all 3 styles. Now, before this and during the game, I was communicating with the 2 player who's called the one player was Asian of some description. I think due to the writing, it could have been Chinese or Japanese, or I don't know. It was Asian looking. And basically the way we thought we'd go about this was, I was just going to do my standard tactical war of attrition and just throw as many men at the problem to solve it, while would save up his resources and his money. You can see out of all 3 of us in the top right, he's quite often got the most out of all of us. He would send out the heavy hitting units just to push forward that ground a little bit, and then I would send out a wave to hold it until came back around with the heavy hitting units just to push forward again. So it was quite a slow process, but it did work, and it worked effectively, because at no point did we actually end up losing ground. We just kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. which I think one player, whoever that was, thank you very much for your participation, but seemed to catch on with, because they seemed to start putting out a mix to try and either push or hold the ground as well. So they would be putting out just like a general based army, so the enemy would be getting hit with some seriously heavy units, then being held off by a mass army, and then being pushed up again by having a collection of some seriously damaging units, and then the heavy hitters come back through again. As you can see, this is my turn now with all the little guys. There were hundreds of them. They do get picked apart pretty quick, but they're numerous enough to hold the ground. And then this is coming in now with some of his heavy hitters, as well as those big massive cannons. So it was a pretty worthwhile strategy. But anyway, yes, this game is actually pretty darn good. Like I have said, it is an introduction to RTSs, so if you have got an RTS, not going to be too great. If you're looking at getting into one of these, this is a fair start, and it probably would be quite worthwhile, to be honest. And from there, you can see as to whether you wish to commit to a more monetary based RTS, perhaps actually push it a little bit further and getting some of the more hardcore ones that are a lot more PvP intensive, such as Dawn of War. But really, this is actually a pretty good game, and it does come with a nice thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.